Welcome to the Beyond Infinite podcast. This is episode number 12. As always, we have a nice show for you today. We have exciting news, exciting new segments, maybe exciting surprise twists, starring your regular host here, D Money. And we have, of course, It's Guest Gaming joining us here. What's up, guest? How we doing?
I'm doing fine. I don't know what the hell you're talking about with all these surprise twists, but we're just getting ready for a podcast. It's just a normal infinite podcast amongst two partners on Twitch. No big
Oh,
deal. I could finally brag mildly, even though I have no ego whatsoever. But I do want to I want to open the podcast right off the bat with that because I owe you, good sir, a huge thanks because you in particular, after going through the application the very first time, you reached out to me and was like, I still have my old partner letter from when I applied. Let me send it to you. And I use that as a great starting template for when I applied my second time. Started from there. I like the structure, certain things that you said and didn't say. I was like, ooh, that makes a lot of sense to focus it this kind of conversation. And when I sent my letter on in, it was obviously accepted because now I rock a purple check mark. So I want to say thank you to you for reaching out and doing that and sending that to me because you wanted to help me get over that hump and threshold as well. And yeah, we made it. We made it. So thank you, dude. I want to say
that,
thanks.
no problem, bro. No problem. That's what the Beyond Infinite stands for. Like not only
Yeah.
Marvel Snap, but also Twitch. Yeah,
Above
I
and
got you.
beyond, like the above
Exactly.
and beyond, like you wanted for the podcast name, but Disney said no, to infinity and beyond. Like we could go in different
I
ways.
mean, honestly, I just couldn't do a podcast with somebody that wasn't here anymore. Like I was like getting really tired of it, so like I had to just like
That's fair. That's
cheat a
fair.
little, you know.
That's fair.
No,
That's fair.
no, you really deserve it, and I'm really happy for you. So and of course, like I always want to help out people if I can, and if I helped in any way, like it's amazing and inspiring and motivating people to like chase their dreams. Like that's my biggest passion. So it makes me very happy that you got another step towards your goal here. Let's go.
Damn right. Damn right. That's one down and step in the right direction. Just like Marvel Snap, sort of, kind of, maybe, depending on how you want to look at it, because this week was a very revealing week for a lot of people, and it brought out some interesting opinions from people once they saw some resolution. So I wanna hop into the chaos because we have not pre-talked anything about the patch. We have not pre-talked anything about, I don't know if you're in love with it or you're in hatred of it, but we've talked at length here on the podcast about Zabu multiple
Mhm.
times. And finally, we get a patch on this week. I was about to say on Tuesday. No, it wasn't. We get a patch this week, yesterday, and Zabu is finally addressed. So I want to open with the big furry man himself and talk
Nate.
the patch. Yes, you are the furry man. This is a fact. Let's talk about the brand new version of Zabu. It was a 2-3 with now an on reveal of until the end of next turn, your 4 cost cards cost 1 less. Do we like this? Do we hate this? Is this what you like? What you want? Because you've talked more Zabu than anybody else.
I will never complain ever again on this podcast or stream or ever in life. Like I finally got what I wanted.
You heard
I
it here.
there's
He's
no
done.
more. Yes.
Z, he's
Whew.
officially done whining. Congratulations. All it took was a
Yeah.
Zabu nerf.
Honestly, yes. I've been calling for this for so long. I think you actually had called this specific change. I think you had maybe mentioned like that for next turn only. I'm not sure exactly. I think I wanted him to maybe go to 3 costs or something or 4 costs or but you had said specifically for next turn and yeah, I like it a lot. I mean it's definitely the card is not like completely killed by any sense. It still does help you curve out whether you want to play like it's actually like very flexible where you want to play it like depending on what your hand is looking like you could play it on turn 2 still and just go into a 4 drop. You could play it on turn 3 and play a 4 drop with a 1 drop. Or like you could play it on turn 5 and then play two 4 drops. So it's still I think it's still like a fine card, but it definitely got hit a lot, and it needed that because like I've been saying, like it was just an auto include in pretty much every single deck, especially since Shang-Chi is like so prevalent in the game. And it's like a must include card as well. Like you just
Yeah.
first you start off your deck by putting in Zabu, Shang-Chi, then put in like one or two more four costs, and now you could start filling out your deck. Like that's just not what we want in the game. We don't want these cards that you have to put in your deck. We want some room for creativity.
Yeah. I
So I'm happy.
Yeah, you basically said everything I kind of feel with it. It was one of the nominations. I forget exactly when, but it was a variation on something we had talked about of, next turn only. I was concerned about it, and then thinking more and more about it because we all got the patch as a surprise. We knew it was going to be delayed, and then all of a sudden, boom, it went live. And normally the creator program, we get a little bit of a heads up, but because there was a delay, it was hard to communicate out early. And when we all got hit with it, I was live reacting to it on Twitch. And all of a sudden, when I'm reading this, I'm like, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. And then in my head, I'm going, wait, this also heavily affects Psylocke because on one end, depending on how you were building your deck, if it was a 4-cost card you wanted to play early, then Psylocke technically is better because it gives you more flexibility. But if it's a end of the game mechanic and you're trying to play Zabu on 5, then this is better because it can affect 2 cards at the same time. So it justifies its 2/3 power by saying you want to use this later in the game versus having the flexibility of only 1 energy depending on when you want to use it. So it is a very conditional card now. I even went up against a couple today in the Infinite Climb, and there were a couple of moments where I was like, wow, you know what? Actually, this did make a little bit of an impact and it's a little more powerful now. And it does kill certain synergies, but I think it just reopens different ones because you could either Psylocke for 2/1 and use it whenever you want, or if it's a combo deck that you're looking to build, now Zabu really leans into this is a very specific type of combo you're trying to build, so you're going to be rewarded by using a very specific type of combo card that only works with one specific cost parameter. So it's very, very, if you couldn't get the hint, specific. And I like that for Zabu because it still has the flavor of what he does, but doesn't take away necessarily an undercut, which is what I think a lot of people were really worried about with him, which is that they would under nerf him after they've nerfed everybody under the sun around him first.
Yeah, I think that the Zabu versus Psylocke thing is an interesting dynamic. But like you're saying, yeah, it really comes down to really comes down to your deck. Like if you have probably I would say like three or four drops in your deck, then Zabu makes a lot more sense because of that turn 5 setup into the last turn to play those two fours. But um, when you get less than like three, if you have less than three four costs in your deck and you're thinking between Zabu and Psylocke, then it becomes a very like close thing there because then Psylocke is kind of just more flexible. Um, but
Yeah.
Zabu also has one more stat now or whatever. So um, but yeah, Zabu is completely different now because of course, like you're not only just dropping it on turn 2. Like you see your opponent play a card on turn 2 before this patch. Like you see a card come down on turn 2, you're like, well, Zabu's flipping here or whatever. But
Right.
now you might not actually see it. You
Yeah.
still might see it, but I feel like I feel like a big deal with this Zabu change is it really affects Sarah decks
Yeah.
because Sarah plus Zabu on the field was able to
Hmm.
pull off some incredible plays in it. Like yeah, everything was so cheap, and you were able to play those two forecasts alongside like two other cards and stuff like that. Like it was
Yeah.
a lot that you could do there, and now you cannot play both. You have to play Sarah on turn 5. It can't be Zabu as well. So theoretically, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a big hit.
Yeah. It definitely is a big hit. The Sarah Tech decks are the ones that definitely got hit the hardest because I was doing some theory crafting today, with new Zabu, and I was like, all right, can I even make tech? And tech without Sarah doesn't make any sense, but Zabu with Sarah also doesn't make any sense now. So that whole archetype is basically going to end up being affected. I think there's a replacement coming next week, but we'll talk about that a little bit later on. Um, moving on up though, out of well, you know what? Let's just talk about the big purple cloud because everybody knows the big
Yeah.
purple cloud is probably the big one. I'm not going to try to make a moment out of that. Let's just be honest. Like Alioth being changed to a 6/8 on reveal. Remove the text from all unrevealed enemy cards here. Um, it has been brought to my attention by multiple people since the announcement of this that it's Guest Gaming, I am awesome because I called this to a T. Exactly this text, exactly this change, exactly this cost, exactly everything. And the funny thing is, even though I believe it happened here and on Twitter, like talked about it here and then also talked about it on Twitter, I hate to tell the entire community, I don't remember saying it. And I can't find where I said it. And I've had multiple people contact me saying that I said it. So to all of you who have seen me, or please put it in the comments, send me a message, show me when I said this, because I literally have no idea. Either way, I love this change.
I think, yeah, I believe that I can believe that you said this.
Yeah.
I don't
I
remember
do
you
too. I
saying
believe me too.
but I yeah, this is a big change. So yeah, Alioth is now like a completely different card, completely reworked. I mean, pretty reworked. And yeah, I mean, before this, he used to just destroy everything and wouldn't even get to flip. But now your cards do get to flip. You do get the power. You just don't get the effects like the reveals or the ongoings, whatever the text is on there. Um, so kind of like a leech effect, but like on that solo lane, and only if it's unrevealed. So I think it's like pretty dang weak. Not gonna lie, a lot of people are pretty outraged, even though a lot of people didn't like playing against the card. There's a lot of people that did like playing it, or there's a
Yep.
lot of people that bought it. There's been like a lot of a lot of talk on Twitter, a lot of slander, I should say, towards
Commentary, we'll
the
put it,
devs.
we'll
Yeah,
summarize it
sure.
as. Yeah.
Yeah, where there's players that are very upset that they bought these cards, that these Series 5 cards that they had acquired some way are being changed dramatically, like Alioth, and becoming a card that's kind of unplayable. It seems. I haven't tried playing it myself, but
Yeah.
it definitely does seem a lot weaker. And probably not. I mean, with all these new 6 drops that we have in the game, like you probably just don't want to play this card. So yeah, there's a lot of talk about that, a lot of outrage. But yeah, I think Alioth is pretty dead for now, I would say.
For the most part, I think that a lot of people are freaking out just because of, hey, I wanted Alioth. He was one of the top cards in the game. I got Alioth. I saved my resources. It took X amount of time, and now my resources have changed. And there's a very interesting conversation happening in regards to understanding terms of service versus what you own versus what's good business practice. And look, Marvel Snap has made it very clear, in my opinion, very clear that this is going to always be a flexible game. And what you get at first from a card might be nerfed, but also might be buffed. You may have missed out and then gotten the thing later and went, wow, this was great. Gladiator, if Ravona, if you got it when it was quote unquote bad, you were rewarded. And if you got it when it was good, like Alioth or original Zabu or original Silver well, no, those were season passes, but you know, even back in that day, though, still, if you spent tokens to get these cards and then they're changed, it's an ebb and flow of you're going to have different metas, you're going to have different things. And if you are only playing Marvel Snap as a one-trick pony, I don't think this is I don't think this is the game for you either. I hate to say it. There are 200 something, 250 plus whatever it is cards. If you're stuck on 12 and one of them made your entire sandcastle fall, I'm sorry to you that that's your play experience. And I know it's harsh and it's a little mean, but so was Alioth. And the way I kind of look at the Alioth nerf and the way they look at the Alioth nerf is that he's had his time in the sun. No pun intended, as a giant purple fart cloud. But it is also time to find that he's a little too invasive. His play rate is too high. And He's too easy of a condition to pull off. And it also, for a majority of players, was ruining a game experience. With him changing, turn 6 is now a viable thing again. And I think people are going to be less scared of him, which is what should happen. You should be able to enjoy as many rounds as possible in your matches. Him fully removing everything from the entire lane as an insta win did kind of suck. The thing that shocked me the most is that they actually went with the 6-8 stat line, because 6-2 they could have probably left that with this exact effect and it would have been just as interesting. But they said they play tested him even higher in the creator conversations, that he was even play tested at 6-9 with this effect. And it was like, you know what? Okay, let's just really hit him. And they chose to. And that's completely okay. They're allowed to do that. They're legally allowed to do that. And I think, look, call me a shill if you want. I don't work for Second Dinner. I'm looking at it from the perspective of a business giving a more balanced play experience that allows people to actually play their cards. Does the effect go off? No, not in this instance. But at least your Magneto still put 12 power down and you still won that lane. You know, you might have messed up your Silver Surfer decks or your combo decks, sure, but then he's done his job. I guess the bigger question I'm going to throw to you then is, in 6-8 Alioth with this text or 5-3 Leech, who would you actually rather want to put in your deck now? If you
Probably
actually
Alioth.
had to.
Just because of the power, probably.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't think it's the worst card ever, but it's probably, I think it's unplayable comparatively to like
Oh,
everything else.
yeah.
But there's a couple things that I just want to go into with what you said there. Um, so first off, I mean, we've talked about it before. Everybody's talked about it before, where there's these cards like Leech and like Alioth that don't allow your opponent to really play their cards or see their cards get their effects off, and uh, those are things that Second Dinner has talked about. Like, they don't want, like, it's these feel bad cards.
Yeah.
Like, the
Feels bad.
card games don't want you to feel bad, because then you stop playing the game. Like, they want you to keep playing the game. And yes, maybe they'll keep these cards around, like these feel bad cards around, for a little bit so you can enjoy it or whatever. Somebody can enjoy it. But that's not what they want in the game. And it's very evident with the Leech change and now the Alioth change and what they've just said and just general philosophies. So, like we have talked about it before, and also, like, the thing with the money, all right, with spending money on cards and having them change, that happens in every card game.
Yep.
That happens in literally, not even just card games, in any game. Usually when something is released in a game, they make the card, or they make the new hero in Valorant or something like that, just like completely broken on purpose, because they want you to buy it. They want you to spend money to play
Well,
with this new thing.
yeah. Well, hold on. I'll let you finish, but I got something to say there.
Sure. But okay, maybe not beyond broken, but they usually will make it over in some kind of way to entice you to spend money on it. That's not always the case, but that's usually how it is. But in card games, I mean, we talk about it all the time, how we think that a card will get changed eventually. We don't know when it's going to get changed, but like sometimes it's like very obvious that like a card is too good. And like, people come into our chats all the time, into any Twitch stream, and they're like, should I spend my tokens on this? Should I buy this card? And it's like, I mean, honestly, I think it's probably like, this card is like OP. I think it's gonna get changed, but like, if you like it, we can't give financial advice. Like, it really depends on your situation. So it's like, but I wouldn't be surprised if this card that you want to buy because you think it's overpowered too is gonna get changed in the future. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then it's just, yeah, that's it. But also, like, I understand being upset that if they completely nuke the card so that it can't just be played in general, like kind of like Leech or Alioth. Like, yeah, that's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Balance is one thing, and be grateful, as awful of a word as that can be at times, be grateful that this is a digital card game that can change cards versus any physical card game where if they publish a broken card, what happens to it? It gets
They ban
banned.
it.
You just are not allowed to play it. You may own it. You may have spent 10, 100, 1,000 plus dollars on this very special, unique card that is broken and winning tournaments. And if it's clearly too broken or someone finds a combination with an endless loop or whatever, guess what? Tournaments just end up straight up banning it. And you can't use it in any format that has any value to you. Now, I know that's tournaments, and that's a whole nother conversation for a different cocktail with, Marvel Snap, but that's still also the case when you're looking at Conquest or Ranked Ladder. Same thing. If we had a broken ass card, what would you want it to be done? You'd want it removed, right? If your only opportunity was to have to try to play that card, you'd want it fully removed in any other card game versus in Marvel Snap where they can tweak and edit and adjust. And I also bring up the nomination of Forge, where Forge has gone in a full circle, and we've seen Second Dinner put a card into the limelight, realize it's overtuned, and then also bring it back down because maybe it was undertuned beforehand. They give just as much as they take. But I also want it to be pretty publicly, shared that Second Dinner is not in the business of pulling the rug out from underneath you. They're not intentionally releasing cards to be broken. They're releasing cards to be good. And they want the cards to be good. And they've said multiple times, we'd rather a card be good and then have to mildly tune it down. But our goal is never to release broken cards. That's absolutely the case. And that's pretty much what they're trying to do here. I look at Red Hulk. Many people are saying Red Hulk's one of the best Series 5 cards in the game. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But Red Hulk is broken. It's incredibly easy to get a 614 like that in your hand and just let it be there, let it grow and be a threat. Yes, you can see it grow, but it's still an absolute powerhouse of a threat, piece of power that you have to deal with as your opponent. So is it broken? Yeah. Will it probably get nerfed? Yeah. Is it going to stop you from buying it? Probably not, though, because it's still that damn freaking good. And they're going to change cards, and you have to come to terms with that. Alioth is exactly in this stance, where it was a card that was good. It was a card that was way too good. They nuked it down. It was still too good. So they had to do something even further drastic to change it entirely. And in my opinion, this is probably the fairest balance of keeping the integrity of what the card is supposed to do for the mechanic of the game and the lore of the card without building a whole brand new card, for lack of a better term, if that makes sense. They've broken cards down completely before. At least they just tweaked this one so drastically that you have to completely change your entire mindset on what the card is. Just like Sandman. Like Sandman's a completely new mindset that people just aren't used to yet. He's a 5/7 on reveal now versus the ongoing. And the second I read this, I loved it. I thought this was so elegant, so much fun, because now he's basically changing your whole perception of what to do with Sandman. He's no longer the Sandman Electro ramp deck. He's now a tech card. He's now a Legion. He's now a Black Bolt. He's now a Lady Deathstrike, who's also at 5/7 now, but a little different. Like, I love this Sandman change.
Yeah, it's just like another change to a restrictive kind of card that doesn't let you play your cards.
Right.
And I like this direction that they went in with the whole patch with these kind of cards because it just opens up the game to just more playability in general. And
Mhm.
Sandman could be really toxic if your opponent just has like a really good opener. If they have Electro into it or Wave into it, and you're playing a deck that is not equipped for that, like that just ruins your whole entire deck in an instant, and you had no chance to play around it. Like you just feel like the game was like maybe that's enough Marvel Snap for me today, So
Yeah.
um, I like this change to Sandman, and I also like that Lady Deathstrike is getting a little. I don't even know if it's a buff or not. It's different. It's different. It's getting something.
Yeah. It depends on who you ask, because Lady Deathstrike on the one end, half of the community is saying it's a nerf and half the community is saying it's a buff. And I think it really just depends on if you wanted to use this with Shuri. If you were running Lady Deathstrike Shuri decks that were capitalizing on the fact that you could get your Lady Deathstrike, who was previously at 5/4, doubled up to 5/8, and that would destroy everything 7 power or lower, versus the new LDS, which is a 5/7, but only will consistently destroy each card here with 3 or less power. I think that this new tech card is more in line with what I think they were trying to go for originally, even though in the release video for LDS, they showed a synergy with Shuri, but clearly that wasn't strong enough. I think that she needed the actual base power because the Shuri line was not enough to give her the life that she needed. She is now a cool, fun tech option too, where you could just throw her, in my opinion, you could throw her into almost any deck, yet alone a destroy deck, and let her, ruin your opponent's tech card. Let him ruin Mobius and Elsa. Just destroy him up so he can't ruin on the final turn. Why not?
Yeah, I mean a big target always with Lady Deathstrike has been Iron Man
Yeah.
and or Dracula as well, and it
Yep.
still hits those targets. So I think it overall is a positive change. I feel like the only the only way that you maybe don't like this change is if you wanted the effect to stay the same, but them to just buff the power, which
Yeah.
would just be yeah, which would just be better, of course, for the card. But I feel like overall, it's got to be a buff. And like now, you're actually adding like some power to that lane while taking away power, so you don't feel so bad about playing Lady Deathstrike on 5, like as opposed to like sure, even if I clear their whole board, I would only have like a 4. I would only have 4 power on that location, so they would
Bingo.
still be able to take it back. So yeah, I do like the change. I've always liked Lady Deathstrike, and I always love destroying Draculas and Iron Man. So
Never gets
yeah,
old.
so yeah, I don't know. This patch was a big patch, man.
But we haven't even talked about my favorite change, my overall favorite change. Only because that big, strong guy in his new glory got me to infinite today because
Oh,
he is so much better now that he's a 3/3 with an ongoing +6 like he had, but it's changed to if your hand has 1 or fewer cards. And this is such a welcome change for discard. This, in my opinion, kills Dokken completely. Dokken is no longer a discard card, in my opinion. I hate Dokken in discard now. Even though it was his best position, Strong Guy is just so much better because he's so much easier to pull off for less mana. And
you could actually play it with Apocalypse, like
yeah, that's what I
having
did.
only the Apocalypse in your hand. Yeah, that's a huge deal.
Yeah, he's so good. And because he wants you to just get rid of everything, as long as you pull Apocalypse, like you can do the whole Swarm, APOC, and I built all of the big cards from discard together for new discard. I threw in Swordmaster, I threw in Hellcow with Modoc, and literally just destroy and throw everything out of your hand. And man, he's great. I ran 65% win rate with him in that giant big toss it all type deck. I'm making a video on it because it was just so easy to run, and it's also easy to substitute because it's not one of those things where you mandatorily have to have Meek or you mandatorily have to have Proxima Midnight. You can make substitutions. The big thing to know is that if you're running Drac, APOC, Swarm, and Modoc, that package, he is a really, really strong card. And he should be. He's a strong guy.
Yeah, it really works for discard very well because, like you're saying, like it's for that 3 slot because they discard decks always have like I mean now we have Meek, but for Meek for 1, we have Morbius for 2, and then we have Dracula for 4. But that 3 slot has always been a little iffy for the deck because like Swordmaster's fine, but then you don't want to discard your Dracula or your Modoc and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really nice to have a consistent 3 cost that you can still make it work, like we were saying with Apocalypse, because that was like the big deal. Because in the most powerful discard decks, you always want to have Dracula discard the Apocalypse at the end,
Yep.
and that just made it so you would never have 0 cards in your hand unless you didn't draw Apocalypse, and if you didn't draw Apocalypse, then you didn't win. So it's like, yeah, this is a strong guy is strong now, I think as well, and it gets under the Shang-Chi still, which is
Mm-hmm.
very good. And also, I feel like it has potential in Silver Surfer as well because Silver Surfer
Mm-hmm.
does play a lot of their cards. So I could see
Yes.
it actually being a pretty solid contender for that deck.
I have a Silver Surfer deck built for him. I was going to run it today, but I definitely tried to get too memey on my climb to infinite, and I took way too much time doing so. So I didn't get to run it today, but I'm going to try it out tomorrow. But yeah, Strong Surfer is probably going to be very easy to do and really quite good. So fingers crossed. Strong guy, I think, and I haven't even thought about Drac Dump because it's same idea, just easier to achieve. Zoo Dump, why not?
Yep.
Throw him in there too. He's even easier to achieve and not have to worry about cards going away. Even put APOC into a Drac Dump again now is a viable option. Like, I don't know. There's some cool things we can do with new Strong Guy because you're no longer limited to absolutely having to have nothing left in your hand. He was so far my favorite change, but that's because I've used him the most since the patch actually dropped. But with the patch dropping, though, there was also another change that went live. And I think it could have rolled out differently, is the way I'm going to word it. Because the way that they decided to roll it out was probably with the most aggressive foot forward. And that was the change to the shop, where they now have the new cosmetic shop. And I know you want to talk about it in particular for very understandable reasons.
Yeah, I'm mad because I haven't gotten the emotes that I want in my shop yet. Yeah, so
Give it time.
for those for those that didn't know, yes, we have this new cosmetics area of the shop right now, even though it was like full of cosmetics anyway. Um, Now you actually have a rotating thing that has 3 slots, I believe, and
Yep.
it's either going to show an avatar or an emote. And avatars, I believe, are 400 gold.
Depending, yeah,
And
400 or 250. It really depends on
okay,
how rare it is.
and emotes are 2,200 gold.
Yes, there's supposed to be
Yes.
other cosmetics that also will come to it. We just haven't seen them yet. I don't know about titles. I don't know about card backs, but there are supposed to be other cosmetics, and they're looking at others for next season potentially too. But as of right now, the big conversation pace is the emotes being at 2,200. What are your thoughts about that?
So 2,200 gold, I believe, is $30. That's what people are saying.
25 to 30
And
bucks,
but
depending on how you look at it. Yeah.
it varies, yeah. I mean, there's also like these the first time you buy gold now, like you get like double the amount of gold, so then you could kind of say it's like $15 in a sense. But let's just say it's $30 or $25. Um I I'm really not mad about it. I'm actually like I do think it's expensive, but everything in the shop has always been expensive. And I'm not saying that that's okay. I'm not like trying. I don't like that there's a precedent that everything is just going to be expensive in the shop. But
Mhm.
also, it's not really like so off track from what their pricing has been. Like especially like if you just look at a 1,200 gold variant, like you might not even play this card in that many of your decks all the time. Like maybe you play it in one archetype and then that's it. But this emote that you buy for just a little bit more is going. You can have that in every single game, and
Yep.
you can be toxic in every single game that you want. So I really don't see that much of a problem with it because of the track record. But that being said, it is expensive.
So I'm going to read to you the developer, Steven, his response to this exact question, and then I'll comment on it first. Because someone asked, how come the emotes are 2,200 gold to buy and avatars are 400? How are the prices determined? And I quote, emotes are priced being the top prize for completing an album. Albums are a major goal and accomplishment. It was important to maintain the value of completing an album, but we wanted to make some emotes available to folks not interested in albums as well. If it ends up missing the mark, we will reevaluate whether they make sense in the cosmetic shop. Now, when this dropped and I looked at the 2200 gold, again, we were live. It was all a surprise to us. I look it up and they show 2200 gold. And the community, of course, knee jerk reaction, freaked out. 2200 gold, it's like 25, 30 bucks. Oh my God, this is stupid. This is awful. How can they charge this much for an emote? And da da da. And I immediately am on record saying almost exactly this from the devs, where they straight up said, the emotes have to do with albums. This is exactly what it's from. This is the main achievement. What would you rather do? Spend on the Dan Hip album, which is the cheapest of them all, 700 times 12, so 8,400 gold to slowly and progressively get the emote that you want, or a one-time buy for an emote for 2,200. Well, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. And price-wise, that makes a hell of a lot of sense. So I saw that justification, and then I also looked at the different bundles that were in the store, where it's like, okay, one of the bundles right now, it has 2,500 gold in it. How would you look at that bundle if instead of having 2,500 gold, what if it had an emote in its place? Would you then spend $25 on this bundle? And I let the community talk about it, and I said, however you feel about both of those inquiries is exactly how you feel about all cosmetics in general. It's very predetermined. Either you love the idea and you're willing to spend your resources on a cosmetic, because this isn't pay to accelerate, yourself into a situation where you're going to win more. This is just pay to accelerate to get something shiny. You can't win by buying an emote. That's J. Jonah Jameson has not come out where it makes all the emotes ruder as it shows in the data mines. Like, this is just a shiny object, and some people want those shiny objects, and they are willing to spend that money. And if they're willing to spend that money on it, I think that this price point, given the reputation of what emotes are, which is a top prize for competing an album, makes total sense. And there's some really cool emotes that are going to come available for gold. You might have hoped it would have come to an album, maybe. Like the Miss Minutes is one of the most popular ones that people have been seeing in the data mines and everybody wanted, and they're like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what album that gets associated to. And now it's only available for gold. I can understand being frustrated about that. But the price point, I agree, is justified because of what Second Dinner is trying to do, which is rewarding progression to get cosmetics. That's how you move up in the game. It's how you unlock things. The albums are something to achieve and work towards. If you want to accelerate to get just an emote, yes, you're going to pay to accelerate. I am totally on board with how this rolled out when it comes to the price points. I just wish that only one emote was in the opening line, where it was not 3 emotes all at 2,200, and then the refresh happened 8 hours later, and then it was all avatars for 400. Because those first 8 hours were really rough to listen to the Twitterverse and the Redditverse and all the verses.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying there, and with what they were the devs, because it's these albums are expensive to complete, and I've talked about it on the podcast before. I talk about it all the time on my stream. Like, I am like not even like halfway to completing like one album. Like, I think there's like one album that I'm like almost there, but
Yeah.
I have spent so much money on this game, and my collection level is so high, and I am not even halfway to completing one freaking album to get a new emote. So I would love the opportunity personally to be able to buy an emote for a very small fraction of the price of getting
Mm-hmm.
one through the albums. I think that's totally fair. And like you said, it's not something that's pay to win. It's
Yeah.
just purely cosmetic. I mean, that's if you play Hearthstone, all right, you could buy it. You could get a signature version of a card or a golden version of a card, which does the same exact thing as a regular one.
Yep.
But it just looks cooler. And it's the same thing with emotes, and they even have it like in Hearthstone Battlegrounds with emotes, like that you can buy a pack. Like I'm really not opposed to it. I still think it's a little more than I would like to spend, but so is everything else, in my opinion. So, and I
Yep.
think I think a lot of people can agree with that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'm looking forward to that TVA one in my shop as well. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I
It
want
was there. It was there briefly
yeah.
overnight. It'll refresh. It'll come back. But I'm curious to see which other ones also kind of show up too. Um, little fun spoiler that we're allowed to talk about. One of the things they are looking into for the cosmetic shop for the future, unique and individualized borders, avatar borders that are only available in the shop, which I thought was a nice little flair piece to kind of, really deck out your layout that you can put onto anyone. I'm like, okay, interesting. You
As
have
long
me
as it doesn't
listening.
look like the Spotlight one, then yes, because I
I
think that
will.
one looks horrible.
I agree. I 100% agree on that. All right. I think there's. I also think there's another thing we 100% agree on because I I tried. I tried really really hard. I did everything I could to make it work, and I couldn't.
Oof. I think I
U.S.
have a feeling
agent.
like, yeah.
Yeah. It's look. I have one deck, one synergy, I should say, that was good pretty much exclusively, and that was playing a Daredevil, uh, what do you call it, Professor X and Hobgoblin trio with him worked great because then you had different outs and different add-ons, and it was easy to target and easy set lanes. You could put Cannonball in that mix too if you wanted. That worked, and that was it. I tried Surfer, I tried C3. It just feels like a really bad card.
Well, I haven't played Marvel Snap in a few days. I don't even have any keys. I spent 3 keys to try to get red last week. I didn't get them. So
Uh,
um, I like that you tested it out for me. Thank you,
you're
and
welcome,
I will
and I'm
stay
sorry to the
away.
world
I
because
figured. I figured that I still think that he's probably an okay addition to like one deck, to like an ongoing deck.
yeah,
But besides that, no. And even so, like you don't even need him in this place. Like you're gonna be fine playing. And yeah, the fact that he's Series 5 again,
yeah,
like
which
yeah, it's
leads to
tough.
an interesting conversation too in regards to his release because I don't know if you saw or have seen the chaos in regards to how he released Bugged, kind of sort of. Not him as a card. If you got him with collector's tokens, there's no issue. You got him and he is what he is. But if you tried to get him with spotlight keys, we had people because something went weird and buggy that were opening upwards of 6 or even 7 keys and still didn't unlock US agent. People just kept unlocking and just was like, wait a minute, all of a sudden that's my 6th key. How the hell did I not get him to red? What the hell? People were confused as all hell. And Second Dinner recognized this, of course. From his release, it took about 3 hours before they fully implemented a solve to disable the keys. So you can't unlock anything right now. And it is what it is. And as someone who spent collector's tokens on him because I didn't want any variant from the spotlight, I had tokens. I was like, all right, I'm going to use US agent. As someone who played him, I honestly think, given how the situation happened, some people who did look to go get him, I think anybody who tried to go get him and didn't, anybody who opened a spotlight key of any kind, whether it was 1 or 7, doesn't matter. I think every person who opened a spotlight key should get US agent first and foremost. Then I think he should be made a series 4 card on top of that. Now, in regards to how many spotlight keys or compensations or whatever, like some people are saying the Kitty Pride treatment, everybody should get US agent. Here's the thing. You don't want that. You don't want them to give you US agent because that not only is just worthless, that's like he's just a bad card. It doesn't solve what the actual problem was, which is people wasting their tokens, or sorry, wasting their spotlight keys to open up to try to get him, whether you're a completionist like myself or someone else that just really wanted the card for some weird, bizarre reason. And I think that, if you opened 4 spotlights, you should obviously you should be gifted US agent to get 1 spotlight key back. If you opened more than 4, every one of them past 4, you should be given back. No person should have had to have spent more than 4 keys to get US agent. I think that should be a pretty fair, obvious thing. But I also think that for the community side who didn't get him or didn't try to get him, the fair thing to do is move him immediately to Series 4. Like right away after this week, right now. Because then it's cheaper in the store. You're not missing out on anything. And if you did spend your keys, which you planned on doing anyway, and were willing to spend up to 4 to get him, you are appropriately compensated for your expenditure. That would be my resolution on how to handle the situation, and I'm curious to see how Second Dinner does it.
I mean, the problem with that is you don't know why people use their keys. They didn't necessarily want to use it to get that card. They maybe used it to get one of the very, maybe even the random series 4 or 5 card.
You can't make that judgment though. You have to just
I know,
assume.
I know. That's why you
Yeah.
can't make that judgment. That's why I don't agree with just like giving them the card because maybe they just didn't want him.
But
Who
it's
wants that?
trash. Give them trash.
Okay. I feel like they should just give everybody their spotlight keys back. That's just it. Like they could
Mm,
keep whatever they open. I don't care. Like of course
yeah.
there might be some people out there that they knew it was bugged and they kept doing it because they're like, yeah, they're gonna give me my keys back anyway. I don't even care. And maybe that's the case.
Mhm.
I don't know. And maybe they get
Yeah.
rewarded. But
I know
just
some
give
people did
everybody
that.
their keys back and you can keep whatever you got. Whatever.
Yeah.
Honestly, I don't like. Of course, then I'll feel a little bad because like, oh, I didn't get to use my keys and cheat the system and whatever. I don't know. It just seems like the easiest fix to me. And like if they throw in if they make it a Series 4 card, then they have to give you your 3,000 tokens back, right? They have to give everybody that bought it for tokens. Now they have to give them a refund as well. So I don't even think they're going to do that. I can't really see that, but
No,
I
I
think
actually would
yeah,
say no. I wouldn't be
you don't
mad.
want your tokens.
Of course I want my tokens, but I wouldn't be mad because you have to look at the 3 different groups of people who are affected by this type of bug. There's those who use spotlights, those who didn't use any resource, and those who used collector tokens. In this week, before you nixed it, if you chose to use tokens at 6,000 before any announcements were made, that was your choice. And the same thing happened with Kitty Pride, essentially, right? Kitty Pride was if you spent the 6,000 tokens, you weren't given your caches, you weren't given caches back. If you used caches, you got caches back at the same time. There was other bugs involved with it, but I'm talking about the initial monetary response to how Second Dinner handled that situation. So if they lowered it to Series 4, if I chose to spend it on Series 5, as much as I might be frustrated, I can't be demanding mad like, well, you should give me my 3,000 tokens back. I'd love them to give me my 3,000 tokens back, don't get me wrong, but it's justified, which is a different argument. It's justified for them to say, we don't have to give you your 3,000 tokens back. And I would understand that, even though I might not like it.
I think you're a lot more understanding than a lot of other people would be.
I'm well
That's all I'm
aware
going
of
to say.
this. Try telling that to my Twitter community.
Yeah.
But you
But
didn't
yeah, we'll
miss
have to see
anything,
what the
bud.
fix is for that. Yeah, I didn't miss anything with US Agent. Let's go. I'm very happy that I mean we knew it was gonna be bad. We knew it was gonna
Yeah.
be like mid or whatever. Like
Yeah.
last week we talked about it, and this week we could talk about the next week's card, which is Red Guardian,
Yeah.
who I have known for. I already knew this card. I already knew my judgment on this before we started the podcast.
Damn right you did.
Yeah, it's a 3/3 that has an on reveal afflict the lowest power enemy card here with -2 power and remove its text. So kind of like mini Alioth vibe or mini leech vibes, but like targeting something. So it's
Yeah.
like very I don't know. I think it's actually like pretty solid. Like especially against some ongoing cards like Iron Man specifically.
Yep.
I think this card has a lot of potential. I don't think it's like game breaking, but I think it's just another. There's a lot of there's so many tech cards in Marvel Snap. There's so many, and there's so many that get released in Series 5, and I think this is just another like decent tech card in the game.
Yeah. He is honestly my favorite card of the season. And a lot of people are surprised by that because they're like, oh my God, Valentina. I'm like, yeah, but you can get around that. This, you can't get around. And the way I look at him is he's not a 3/3 that removes two. He's a 3/5. And 3/5s do well. So 3/5 is the new sexy thing to be. So I'm looking at that. That's number one. Number two, removing the text. I mean, removing the text off of Quinjet from your Loki opponents, removing it off of Morbius early from your discard opponents, removing it off of Wong, Dracula, like you said, Iron Man, like removing those abilities, especially because the Living Tribunal is so big right now, to be able to remove it off of the Iron Man is a huge counterplay. I think he's an absolutely ridiculously fantastic card. I think that he is another awesome tech option where, depending on the meta, you decide if you want to run him or not. I think his home will be Sarah Tech, but he will work in a variety of decks. He will be a pretty plug and play card because there's always something to affect. There's always a lowest card in that lane. Even if it's the only card in that lane, there's always one. You know, you put a Darkhawk in a lane all by itself on turn 6. Okay, now he's just a 4-cost card. Like, even that kind of weirdness exists because of this style of card. So I really like him as a plug and play tech option. I think he's an exciting card because tech cards always do well and they're flexible, which means they're resource. What's the word I'm looking for? It's safe to use your
Uh,
resources. I'm looking for a sexier word than that, but there is none off the top of my head. It's sexy to buy this card, in my opinion. He's a good card. He will be worth it. I have very high hopes for this card.
you heard it here first, folks. A guest really thinks that Red Guardian is sexy.
Damn right I do. You're damn right I
um,
do.
yeah, I mean I think this card goes in Surfer. I mean every time you see a new
Oh yeah,
3 cost come out, you always think of Surfer. But yeah, this card, like you said, like it's you can think of it as a 3/5. There's really no downside to this card. Like even if you don't really remove like the best effect ever, like it's still like not a bad card to play. It doesn't feel that bad to play, and it's very interesting to like compare to Rogue. We have somebody in chat saying it seems like a smarter Rogue. It's definitely different. Rogue can create a bigger swing on the board, but it's also more conditional because it has to be ongoing. But also at
yeah.
the same time, Red Guardian is most likely like the best target for Red Guardian is going to be an ongoing most of the time. Like as we talked about, like
Cerebro,
Wong, like Iron Man, Cerebro, sure. Um, but then
Patriot.
also,
Yeah,
Red Guardian can actually hit cards that we haven't been able to really hit before, in a sense. Like cards like Dracula, like besides Lady Deathstrike now, whatever. Um, these cards that have effects that are not ongoing or reveal, they're just effects that happen
static
overall.
effects. Right.
Yes, so I mean, this card can actually hit what's her name? The 3/4, the season pass card, whatever
Hope
her name is.
Summers.
Hope Summers. Yeah. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually like that is very relevant. So I think that this card has a lot of flexibility, and flexibility is like everything in Marvel Snap. And to still have like decent stats along with that flexibility, I think this card is yeah, I think this card is a must buy.
I agree. I just the only thing that I found really surprising is this card comes out, from the time that we're recording this podcast, this comes out in like 4 days, right? The week prior, they nerf the ever living hell out of Zabu. And I thought that this was going to be like, this is your Zabu solution because you're going to target Zabu with Red Guardian on curve every time, every single time. Goodbye. Like, I'm getting rid of that evil, evil cat. But instead, they nerf the hell out of the Zabu, which surprised me. And then this also comes out in a way, this buffs Red Guardian because now you don't have to use it on Zabu, who's sitting there as an ongoing effect at 2-2. Now he just let him, he's non-reveal, you let him do his thing, and then he's done. So there's so much that can be done because of this card. Like, this card is going to help control high evolutionary decks. This deck is going to help control all the ongoing big player decks. For example, like we were talking about with Cerebro and Patriot, it's going to help control discard decks. Depending on how you do it, and if you time it right, you can even work a little bit into destroy with this. Like, there are some cool things that can happen from disabling a card if it's the only card in the lane.
Yeah, exactly. It kind of like we see chat right, or so it can maybe turn off like Real is saying like Sunspot, and then
yeah,
getting a response like I don't think that's going to be the lowest power, but it's really forcing your opponent to play around it by playing another card on that location, or else it will be the lowest power and it
most
will get hit
likely.
by this card. So it's just like it is also just like becoming like a threat that this
Hmm.
card can be dropped on you. So I think it is very interesting
Yeah,
in a lot of different ways. Yeah.
I mean, I can just I could, the list goes on where it's like Goose. You reopen the Goose lane for your 4 costs. Like, there's just so many different Luke Cage. That's cool to me. Like, getting a Luke Cage at the last second to undo that chaos that happened from Hazmat. Okay, now it's even again. Like, there's so many things that this card is going to hit. I think that this is the best card of the season, and I hope, keyword, I hope I'm right because I'm all in on it, and I think the community honestly really should be too. I'm
This could
excited for
ruin
this
your
card.
career if you're wrong.
It really will. They will turn my check mark into a red one and just basically make it a red X and say, "Do not watch this
We're
guy. He
sending you
doesn't know
off
what
to
the hell."
YouTube.
Yeah. Look, Twitter's already after me because I said I wanted to nerf Jeff the Baby Land Shark. I really don't need Twitch also to do this. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
You want
But
to nerf Jeff? That makes me think that maybe he's on your list. And we're about to talk about lists right now. Me and Guest Gaming, we did some secret stuff, some secret planning before the stream.
this is true. This is true.
Where yeah, we made a list of our top 5 Series 5 cards at the moment. Not over, not I didn't make it like an overtime kind of thing. I made it
Yeah.
right now, based on right now. What we think are our top 5 Series 5 cards
Right.
that maybe you should consider buying. I don't
Yeah.
know.
The way I kind of looked at it from my perspective was when looking at the list of Series 5 cards, if I had to tell someone you have only 6,000 tokens, here are your investments. Not which ones should you get through a spotlight or which ones are the overall best values or this, that. I think it was just like if you only had 6,000 tokens and you had the full list of cards in front of you, where are you dropping down your tokens and why? And I wanted to have this type of conversation because Red Guardian is coming out this week. And he's one that I would tell the community in general, yeah, I think he's going to be worth 6,000 tokens. But every time I say that, it also then brings up the secondary conversation of, well, who else would you say is worth it? So I want to put out there our, top fives to say, these are the ones I think are the best and worst and why. And well, not worst, but like which ones are my guaranteed investments right now that I think are going to be worth it. So give me your 5
Well, do you
right
want to
now.
go one at a time,
Let's do 5 and 4.
or
We'll kind of go like twos a bit. So give me your
oh,
5 and your
by
4.
number,
Yeah,
by
number
number five?
5 and
Okay.
number 4.
Uh, it's it's tough. It's tough because
Yeah.
there's a lot of strong cards, and there's like the strong cards are very close in power level, like because they're strong. I would say number 5. I'll put Jeff
Okay. Go
as
on.
the one of as my weakest top 5 card,
Okay.
but my weakest, strongest. You know what I'm saying. All
Yeah.
right.
He made the
And then
cut
I'll
of the
go.
list.
Yeah. And then I'm gonna go with Nico Minoru as well.
Ooh. Okay.
Because
Why
I
Nico
think that
over
her
Jeff?
flexibility. I think that Nico's flexibility, like I think Jeff is very flexible as well. He was before Nico came out. I think he was the most flexible card in the game, but Nico has a lot of potential to do a lot of different things, kind of like Thanos stones. It's kind of like the Thanos stones, kind of like mixed into one card in a
Yep.
sense. And you can run it in any deck. There's no restrictions, and it works with a lot of different archetypes. I think that the and it only costs one energy, so I think that the card just I think the flexibility alone just makes it very powerful. Yeah, and I think both are very good by any means. I don't even know if like Jeff is very close there, but
That's fair.
those are my choices.
Okay. Uh, I I have similar routes on number 4, but my number 5, when looking at it, I'm gonna say Loki, because Loki is such a he's gone through a hell of a lot of changes, and even still at 4-5, he is an incredibly powerful archetype that if you really get to know, you can take down almost anything. He's an incredibly strong deck, and he is a deck defining card, obviously, right? You can't run a Loki deck without Loki. That's just, you know,
He's a
pretty.
meta defining card.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And he warped the meta for way too long because of how strong he was, and now he's a little bit more balanced, but he's still incredibly strong. I think that if I had to choose right now, probably one of the top 5 decks in Marvel Snap, Loki's going to end up on that list more often than not, because there are so many different things that you can do with it. You can tech in as well. He's great. I absolutely love Loki. Number 4 comes as a little bit of probably will come as a little bit of a surprise. I said X-23. And the reason being is because I think X-23, in my opinion, is probably one of the best one drops, if not, well, probably, yeah, I'm going to say it. She's the best one drop in the game. And the reason being is because she took an archetype that was good single handedly and made it a top 5 deck. Nico's great, but not mandatory. And I think X-23, who is my number 4 card on my list, is such an important card that if you want to play Destroy, you can play good Destroy. But if you play it with Nico Minoru, it gets a little better. If you play it with X-23, now you're competitive. And I think that amount of impact for one common archetype justifies her to be worth 6,000 tokens.
Okay, that is a spicy pick there.
I
We
thought you'd
actually
find that a little spicy.
we actually saw it called out in chat before you even mentioned it,
Yeah, I
and I
saw
was
that too. I was like, "Ooh, someone feels the same." All right. All right. But
yeah. They
yeah,
said
I've
they
got
said
my
X
list right
twenty three,
here.
and I was like, there's no way that's gonna be on his list, and it
It
was.
it literally was. That's why
Um,
I was like,
yeah,
"Okay.
yeah. X
Someone
twenty three
someone
is a really
feels
strong
good."
card for Detroit, and it did take it to another level. I agree with that. Number 3 for me, I'm gonna go with Loki myself. I think there's really no debate. It's just like you said. It's just
Yeah.
meta defining card,
Okay.
and I hate it, but it is what it is.
What is your number 2?
That's after I eat Taco Bell.
Okay, what
Got
is your
him.
number 2
All right.
choice?
Okay. um, my number 2 choice. It's so tough between 2 and 1 here. Um, hmm.
You have no
I'm gonna
choice. You
go with
have to make a choice, damn it.
I'm gonna go with Blob. I
Ooh,
think
go on.
Blob is the powerhouse of the cell. He is the mitochondria of Marvel Snap,
I love it.
and yeah, I think Blob is just it's consistently like yes, 15 power is the minimum, but on average, I think like we've discussed before, like it's at least 20 power. It's usually like I would say like 20 to 23, and it's not. I almost went with Red Hulk in my list, but
Mhm.
I did not go with that because of the fact that your opponent knows that it's coming.
Mhm.
And with Blob, they at least have to guess if it's coming down. And yeah, Blob is just so big. It's a premium 6 drop. It's like the biggest game. Um, besides sometimes Red Hulk. Like it doesn't need that condition of being drawn early.
Mhm.
But Blob also, the bad thing about Blob is that it does require your deck to be built differently than a Red Hulk deck. So it does have its downsides comparatively, but I do think it's just one of the strongest cards in the game.
Absolutely fair. Absolutely fair. And what I find hysterical is that your reasoning for not putting Red Hulk in is exactly my reasoning for putting Red Hulk in, because Red Hulk is my number 3. Blob didn't make my cut. I
Okay.
think that the fear that Red Hulk inputs is enough to get retreat cubes more often than the unknown of Blob. And Red Hulk is so strong right now. He's my number 3 choice. He's so strong right now, and I use that word because I think there's no way they leave this card untouched. This is just so broken overpowered that it's demuning inappropriately other big cards. And that's not what Red Hulk should necessarily be. He should be big, but I think getting to 623 should be a little bit harder. Just a
Red Hulk is
little bit
definitely
harder.
my that's my honorable mention for sure. If I had a sixth slot, that would be that card.
Yeah. The
But
6 man award.
also, yeah, also, I kind of disagree. I agree and disagree in a sense. Like the retreat thing, that's cool, but also Blob has a surprise factor with the amount of power that he could come out with to just take more cubes as
Yeah.
opposed to your opponent retreating and you're not getting the cube. So I think they both, I think they both have their benefits and downsides, but
Yeah.
they're both, yeah, undoubtedly, Red Hulk is a top Series 5 card, and I totally agree with you that I think it should be changed.
Yeah. Red Hulk at the moment in his current state is incredibly beefy for all the right reasons. My number 2 card is maybe a little bit of a surprise to some people, but I think overall it's probably the one of the most important cards in Marvel Snap. Um, it's High Evo, because
Ooh.
I think High Evo is such a staple card for Marvel Snap, because number one, you get almost all of the cards that you need to make High Evo very early on. It's always the first one that I recommend to people to get, because it builds such a strong archetype that you can build around. You can build a High Evo deck that feeds into Affliction. You can build a High Evo deck that feeds into Moon Girl Double Up. You can build a High Evo deck that's just big, beefy people, with even with a Red Hulk now, you can throw that in there too. Like you can throw a Pixie variation. It's just a strong, strong deck that brings to light 7 cards that are also incredibly strong simultaneously because of this card, and you've already unlocked it. It's like unlocking 7 cards. And I think
True.
that it might not be the sexiest pick out of all of them, but I do think it's one of the most important picks to have in your collection, because to me, High Evo is the new Old Faithful. It is I need something good to do blah, 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 blah. High Evo can do that for you almost every single way you want to look at it.
I'm wondering if we have the same number one now.
We
Wait,
don't.
no, no, yeah, wait, you didn't say Jeff yet, and you said that you wanted Jeff in there. So am I,
Yep.
is that your number one?
That is my number 1, Jeff the Baby Land Shark. He was your number 5. For me, Jeff the Baby Land Shark is my number 1 Series 5 recommendation. And the reason
Really?
being is you can literally put him into any deck except for Cerebro 2. Like, literally
Yeah.
any deck. You want to put him in Surfer, you want to put him in Affliction, you want to put him in Lockdown, you want to put him in, you name it, Jeff basically works. And he has such a unique mechanic that can be used at any point, and it can go against what other locations even do, which is such an important part of Marvel Snap as well. He is absolutely fantastic. I love Jeff the Baby Land Shark. He will always be, I need the best plug and play card in Marvel Snap, Jeff the Baby Land Shark, hands down.
I do agree that he is like the most flexible card in the game. He could go into anything, and he's always been very good. But I also I did put him lower on my list because I feel like as the game's progressing now, we have other options. I mean, especially now that Quake does what she does now, it does help you get into these other locations.
This is true.
And Doctor Doom is very playable. He's played in a lot of decks, so I kind of sometimes don't even feel like Jeff is that necessary, but he is always just a very solid turn two play. So
Mhm.
I don't mind him being all the way up there for you, but I
Yeah.
think I got the better card though.
All right.
I think
Because
I
I don't know.
you're missing a pretty crucial card on your list here.
I bet I know who it is, and I'm curious
Let me hear your guess.
because I'm going to be mad mad at you if you say Thanos. I'm going to be mad at you.
It's not Thanos.
Thank God, Annihilus.
It's not a Nihilus. No.
Ooh, who do you got?
I went I went with Miss Marvel.
Ooh, okay. Go on.
I think Miss Marvel is. I mean, she got nerfed by 1 power, and she is still 14 power for 4, and it's such an easy condition. She actually got nerfed
Yeah.
in multiple because now you have to have 2 cards with different costs, but it's still such an easy condition, especially in the current meta of Marvel Snap where
Yeah.
you're dropping a lot of cards now. And Miss Marvel is just that's so much power, and you could even sneak it into lanes and stuff. Like it is really like it's always been one of the strongest cards since it was released,
Yeah.
even through the changes, kind of
That's
like
fair.
Loki in a sense. And yeah, I think this card is just always something to think about when making a deck. And now it got a little weaker now that Zabu got changed for sure. But yeah, I'm very happy generally playing this card for 4 energy.
Yeah. On curve, I mean, to get the 414, yeah, it's a damn good investment. Absolutely, hands down. I'll second that. Because I was sitting here going, who's gonna make the cut? Who's not gonna make the cut? Like, she made my top 10. She didn't make my top 5, but I 100% can understand your justification for her being so critical. The Zabu nerf definitely probably kept her out of my top 5 now,
Mhm.
because I do think that was an incredibly important piece to her success consistently. But
Yeah.
on curve, you never feel bad putting down her on 4. You never feel bad putting her down. She's always good. Um, she's a great card, plain and simple. Season pass, yeah, tweaked twice, yeah, she's still good.
Still standing strong. Yeah.
It's
And
true.
like we were saying before, like these cards are all every card that we mentioned is just like there's a lot of Series 5 cards. Like even you go into the top 10 and we would still have very like those are still cards that you should probably buy. Like depending on
Yeah,
it all depends on what your budget is, what your play style is, what you just enjoy playing yourself, and like
yeah,
what your goals are really. Like there's a lot of different factors. We can't really make the decision for you, but those are just our picks for the top 5 Series 5 cards in our opinion that you should buy.
yeah. Very, very true. I like the way you exited that one out. So I think we're just going to leave it at that, good sir, because this has been a great episode. We got a lot of things to look forward to this week. Next week, at the same time that this podcast will come out next week, Twitch drops will also be live. So get ready for those. Magical World. Gotta get ready for it. Gotta get ready for it. I have something planned or in production for planning for next week as
Ooh.
well. Might involve the purple check mark. So next week's going to be a very busy week, and I think this weekend is going to be a very exciting weekend as people mess with all the new cards now post patch. So, D Money, as always, good sir, lead us out.
Thank you for listening to the Beyond Infinite podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it. Let us know on all platforms. We're streaming it live on Twitch. We post it on YouTube. We post it on all these other podcast platforms. Let us know what you think if you can, wherever you want to let us know, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube comments, whatever. Yeah, we always want to hear back from you guys. What kind of guests do you want to see next? Like we have guests, of course, but
This is true.
what other guests would you like on the podcast? We would love to get some. And yeah, if you have any ideas for topics or segments, for sure. But yeah, this was always good talking with you, guest, and I think we did have a very nice episode here. As always, enjoy your day. Thanks for watching. That's it. Bye.
That's it. Bye. I like the way you end that.
There you go.
Bye.
That's how you close out a podcast. That's it. Bye.
That's
Get
it.
out.
Bye. Cut.
We're closing now. You got to go home.
Go home.
You got to go. You got to get back to work, bro. Stop taking a break and while listening.
Okay, I'm sorry.
God. You got to go to sleep, guest. You've been up for way too long. You've been way too productive.
This is
God.
true. This is true. It's bedtime.
Leave some productivity for the rest of us.
No.
Jesus. Yeah,
No.
I'm never going to be productive. Thank you. Take it away from me.
I do what I can.
I don't want to be productive.
All right.